That's in the news this morning, and the Omotunde story is the big story. The head of research at Afrinvest is here. Omotunde, good morning.
Good morning,
It's
boss.
good to have you. This is the big elephant in the room today. I don't know about tomorrow, but as we speak, that's a big story. What's your first word on this technical suspension being lifted?
Good one for investors because, since the suspension, you've frozen the share price and it cannot move. So valuation has been stalled, ever since the technical suspension was imposed. But from today, you'll see price movements, of course, which would align with the current fundamentals of the company vis-a-vis the different macroeconomic changes which you've witnessed since the last October when that technical suspension was imposed.
Does anyone have an idea, or you folks look into the crystal ball and give me an idea of where the share price is likely to head in the immediate aftermath, what you call the morning after?
Well, what you're likely going to see will be investors' initial reaction to the unexpected news of the lifting of suspension. You're not likely to see the reality of the fundamental pricing come in the morning after, the way you put it. So you're still going to see the initial reaction, which some may, maybe taking decision, in light of current market fundamentals, which or market condition, which of course is not so favorable even for other sectors. The oil and gas sector has not really benefited from whatever market movement, gyration that we saw in the early part of the year. So what you're likely going to see today, some investors who could not wait, may have exited their position, in Omotunde at the level at which the price was frozen. But more importantly, it will have not created much of activities which was expected, except for investors who will have taken up the stocks on the basis that maybe the pricing was fair to them.
What sources say the market is that there is a massive build-up of bids.
Correct.
That is, those who want to buy the shares of Omotunde, and those bids are just piling up into millions. That shows that there's a waiting game here. But it looks like the sell-off that we saw initially, and we've tried to track this, that was in millions on a daily basis, started going down to few hundreds of thousands.
Well, that's what happens, because when you've frozen the price, what happens here is, for investors, the reason why you will see bids piling up will be that because the price cannot move, so the trades happening in the market will have been determined by the level at which the price was frozen. So for investors who cannot, bid, they cannot trade at that price, the bid will just, keep piling up, and of course, that's what we see, happening to the share price of Omotunde. But like I said, this is good news for investors, and the fundamentals of the company can be.
So initial knee-jerk reaction today could be positive for the shares, and could also be negative.
No one can tell for sure until market closes today. And
I wish you could tell. But we're going to check with your folks. Maybe you check with your folks and let us know very quickly. But again, let's move on to the broader market, and I'm sure the Omotunde story will unfold in the days and weeks ahead as you folks who are analysts put your heads together and check what we know from what we don't know and what to expect. Would you expect? Would it be right for you to expect the management of Omotunde to do an analyst conference call right away? Do you think that would be in order?
That is not going to be unexpected, given the challenges the company has faced. This was a company that was struggling, with most of its numbers and was risking the possibility of their capital going into the negative territory. They now melted with this regulatory, if you like, punishment, of the supposed infractions, that have been committed within the company, So it's not going to be shocking if we see a pronouncement by management, trying to address some of the concerns, more like stabilizing the market, reassuring investors about Omotunde, and what the management, has in stock for turning the company around and, putting all of these issues behind them.
I think all of this should happen before the full year 2017 earnings that's been postponed till sometime in May next month.
Possibly, or they may as well decide to, because this is April already, they may as well decide to wait until when the result is released, to come up.
The full year result.
Yes, to come up. Of course, there will be earnings call, analyst call,
yes,
you know, after the result is released. But I mean, this may just be an emergency address that the company needs to do, you know, to reassure the investing community.
Okay, a few things been cleared, and as I said, it's a new ocean for Wando from today. But let's understand the current market trend, which is getting a number of folks worried whether the so-called flight from this market have started ahead of the going to be hotly contested 2019 elections. Is this just the normal bearish trend? Is this ahead of the elections? What's spooking the market in your view?
No doubt, the beginning of the year, one of the factors that, you know, has been analyzed that will be a possible drag factors to the market will be the political development, you know, the fact that there will be 2019 election and there will be build up to that election around the second half of the year. Of course, this is beginning to start, you know, with the pronouncement by the president that he will be running in 2019. But besides that, we think what is happening to the market, you know, is not particularly traceable to that, at least for now. The macroeconomic environment is stable. You know, we've seen recovery in domestic production, in global oil prices. You know, we've seen positives within the external sector. You know, we've seen accretion to the reserves, you know, which is around $47 billion, you know, even higher than what South Africa records currently. You know, we've seen, you know, other positives within the economy, the gradual implementation of the ELGP. You know, you've seen efforts that have been put in place by the Minister for Finance, you know, to also increase the revenue profile of government. You know, so there are positives within the macroeconomic side. From the perspective of the market is coming from a return of 42% in 2017. And January 2018 was particularly good for the market. You know, it was as high as 17.9. Unfortunately, today we are talking about less than 6%. You know, market is currently around 5.8, 5.9%. You know, year-to-date return. In fact, in March alone, which is just 1 week, and today makes it the third day. The 8th day. The 7 trading days. Market has shared more than 2.4%. You know, in April alone. So now this speaks about the negative sentiment, you know, that is currently enveloping the market. But one of the factors we've been able to trace, you know, is the fact that you see the dominance of foreign investors, you know, in Nigerian equities, you know, particularly when this rally began sometime around April 2017. But towards the end of the year, you know, most local investors became interested, you know, and these funds, you know, flow came into the market where we now saw, by the time 2017 was closing, domestic participation in the market was around 57%. You know, overweighting that of the foreign portfolio investors, you know. And in 2018 year to date, the same story. As currently around 60% of the market is controlled by domestic investors, you know. So, and you know, the appetite of most domestic investors, you know, for Nigerian equity is that of short term. You know, most of them are not going to be patient, you know, to watch when market, because what it seems like now is that most foreign investors have not exited the market, but they are being very quiet, you know. So local investors seem to be the ones driving the market or dragging the market, as it were, because that's the case that we have now, you know. So, and until you see a positive move by some of these foreign investors where, you know, they pick up some securities, the momentum picks up again, and then you see the market drive.
Is this is it like a bit of room or headroom for this market to make some gains before the political waters get muddled up in Q3?
Absolutely. You know, the market.
And what will drive that? The news box, earnings, what?
Well, some earnings have been disappointing. There's no doubt. You know, by the time we saw most of the results released, you know, for some of the banks, they were disappointing. But some banks make very fantastic declaration in terms of dividend. You know, a Zenith Bank reported when they declared their numbers, dividend yield was around 7.9%. You know, that's impressive, but investors did not react, you know, shockingly. Investors did not react, and we saw a couple of other banks, you know, that declared good results, you know, and with the likes of Access reporting somewhat disappointing results.
Yeah,
UBA
came in a little bit okay.
And then UBA was okay.
Yes.
Guarantee,
yes.
Was not also as expected. It was not too fantastic, of course. But again, beyond these pockets of disappointment, with earnings, we still see the valuation of the market, presenting some opportunities for investors to plug in. So before the electioneering campaign starts, of course, we will still have rooms for positive upside in the market, looking at the general fundamentals.
Let's do something quick before the politicians get in here. We need to get you out of the studio.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Robert Omotunde, the head of research at Afrinvest, and giving you bringing us up to speed what to look out for. And just one piece of news, very quickly before we take a break. The Nigerian Stock Exchange has formally delisted African Paints Nigeria PLC and Afric Pharmaceuticals. Those two moribund small caps has been delisted from the secondary market. And that's coming straight from Twitter, from the Twitter community, Stockman Nigeria. At Stockman Nigeria, that's what the Twitter handle really is. Thanks, guys, for updating us as we speak. It's a new trading day. But let's talk about digital economy when we return. And we'll check back later with Wando on Custom Street.